How do you keep your quarterbacks coach that you really don't want to go be the head coach of another team or, especially a division rival? You fire your offensive coordinator, and then you tell the guy that half of the fan base wanted to call plays earlier in the year, hey, you want to call plays? That's what I think is going on behind the scenes of this Joe Lombardi firing. Yes, I'm speculating here a little bit, but there's got to be something to this, because I think Davis Webb is your next offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, and I'm going to get into my reasons why here in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are only 13 away from 400 subs, and without further ado, roll the intro and let's get into it. Alright, so firstly, I think some of the reasoning behind firing Joe Lombardi, if you are trying to keep Davis Webb around, obviously the offensive coordinator spot ends up available, and you use that as the bait to keep him around with Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, Sam Ehlinger. I mean, Ben DiNucci's probably going to hang around on the offseason roster a little bit. You can never really write the offseason roster off, but Davis Webb has a lot of familiarity with these guys. If I remember correctly, the Broncos are his first coaching job in the league after being a backup quarterback for the New York Giants. Remember the, famous quarterback sneak at the 2-yard line, their own 2-yard line on 3rd and 10, the give-up play. Davis Webb was the one that took that snap, and he has been a great quarterbacks coach for the Broncos. We've already seen Davis Webb call some plays, by the way, the preseason, of course, and that's what I was alluding to at the start of the video. So my thought process here is that this offensive coordinator spot is more than likely being offered up to Davis Webb to keep him here, not just to keep him with the quarterbacks, of course, but to keep him away from the Raiders. Obviously, if that's something that happens, I mean, Denver really likes this guy. They really like Davis Webb. You can tell Davis Webb has really liked working with these quarterbacks. I'm sure he might be, chomping at the bit to get to work with a guy that he can mend on his own, like a Fernando Mendoza coming out of Indiana. He is sure to be a Raider, so apologies to you, Mr. Fernando Mendoza. I hope that Heisman season was fun while it lasted, because it's going to take a minute to adjust to the Raiders. But what I'm saying is that this position, I think, would have to come with some strings. I think Davis Webb would not take a spot like this if he did not get to call the plays. I think he wants to be a play caller, and I don't know if he ends up splitting duties with Sean Payton. We all know how Sean Payton feels about giving up play calling, because trust me, we watched it this year. We heard it when it felt like the entire fan base was screaming for Davis Webb to call plays, which again, all we had was the preseason to go off of there. But with the firing of Joe Lombardi, I do think that you have to look at this as Davis Webb's job to lose. If he doesn't want the job, it is what it is. It just ends up being what it is. I think right now, though, that this is Davis Webb's job to lose. If he wants it, might have a couple of strings attached for stuff that he wants, but he gets to work with his 3 quarterbacks that he's grown with as a coach now. He gets to call. I imagine Davis Webb would get to call some plays. He'd get to draw up parts of his own offense, I imagine, and put them into the game plan. I think Davis Webb might be the Broncos' next offensive coordinator. I think that's part of why they fired Joe Lombardi, because they want to entice Davis Webb to stay a Bronco, come be the offensive coordinator, because again, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the Raiders have just called Davis Webb in for a second interviewing round as a head coach. So that's obviously a little scary for the Broncos. They'd have to go find a new quarterbacks coach as well, and you don't want that. But coming up next, we're going to look at a couple of names that the Broncos could go out and get if they do lose Davis Webb to fill that spot at offensive coordinator. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Crushin' It. One name that's floated around in even just a couple of head coaching searches, Cleveland's namely, I believe Buffalo interviewed him as well, was Rams passing game coordinator Nathan Scheelhaase. Helped coordinate this Rams passing offense to be the first ranked passing offense in the regular season. They were third ranked in the playoffs over the span of the playoffs, and they played just as many playoff games as anyone playing from the wild card to the NFC title game. It was a great season by them, and he's a guy that the Broncos could look at OC if he does not find his way to Cleveland. I imagine they'll be in touch if this isn't the promotion for Davis Webb that we think it is. Another possibility, a guy that's interviewed around for a couple of spots again, is Thomas Brown, New England Patriots pass game coordinator. He's a guy that's interviewed for at least the Cardinals head coaching job, although I imagine he's gotten a couple other looks at a few other spots. Couple of teams have already hired their guys. The interesting thing with him is he's kind of been seeded a couple of offensive coordinator spots and play calling opportunities in 2023 with the Panthers, 24 with Chicago after Shane Waldron got fired, and then he found his way to New England. He's had a year under Josh McDaniels, who does magic as an offensive coordinator. Let's keep it a buck. He does magic as an OC up there in Foxborough, and Mike Vrabel there. So he could be an interesting wild card, but those are just a couple of guys that I thought maybe I'd toss into the fray here. If it's not Davis Webb, let me know what you think in the comments down below, Broncos country. With that being said, this has been another episode of Crushing It. Don't forget, again, to like and subscribe. We're almost 400 subs, baby, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.